Hey everyone, welcome back to Advance. I'm your host, Philip Jones, kidney transplant recipient.
And I'm Tafaro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you or you know someone who has kidney disease challenges and needs help with coaching, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com.
So today we have a wonderful Power Fact show for you. We have 4 cancer survivors here with us today. We all know it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but to us, we like to celebrate cancer patients all around in general. So we have 4 individuals, one of them in a little bit, but today we're going to start with so Mary, go ahead and tell your story.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It is an honor to come forth and to share. Actually, I call it Thrivership. And so I am here today on this platform to first of all say it's celebration time. It is celebration time. We are here together to share our stories that they will inspire, encourage, and bring positivity and peace to everyone that is on with us and everyone who will join later. Again, my name is Mary Wells. I am, as of November 1st of this year, a 9-year breast cancer survivor. I am here in the Midwest, here in the CLE, here in Cleveland, Ohio. And so on October 16th, 2013, I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. At that time, I was newly married. Our son was 2 years old. I was starting a new position in corporate America, specifically human resources, and was diagnosed. No family history of cancer, of breast cancer on either side. And so this really came from out of nowhere. When you're diagnosed, I know for me personally, when I was diagnosed, the first thing I thought of was that I was not going to be here to see my son, and I was actually devastated. And so the cancer was spreading pretty quickly, and I had a biopsy done and was called right back, scheduled for the next day to have another biopsy because there was another lump that was found. And so from diagnosis, the very next week, had to have surgery, had to have a mastectomy on my right side and had that removed. And after having the surgery, which was successful, the diagnosis then was that all of the cancer was gone. And that was great. However, I was told that an aggressive treatment plan was needed for the chances of cancer reoccurring to be very, very small percentage. And so because I had had no health issues until this diagnosis, I underwent 18 weeks of chemo, 30 days of Herceptin, 30 days of radiation. My heart was damaged from the chemotherapy, so I had to have some additional follow-up with regards to heart monitoring. Also 1 year of Herceptin treatment, and thereafter different follow-ups, going through all of the different appointments over a 5-year period. And I will say this, life was never the same. I didn't look the same. I didn't feel the same. I really thought that I was being punished, and that was not the case. Looking from being now on the other side, I was sick and I needed treatment as quickly as possible in order to be well. And so when we go through something, anything in life, we cannot do it by ourselves. So I was very blessed to have people, some of which I did not even know, that I am still in touch with now, appointed on this journey to come along with me, to encourage me, to say, you know what, you're beautiful even when you don't have hair. You know, you can't remember some of the things that has been spoken to you. It's okay. I'm here to help. I'm here to encourage you. And so it was basically a restart, a renewal, a revival, because I had to learn everything new all over again. How to speak, how to walk, how to think, how the regrowth of hair, the regrowth of nails, the regrowth and the renewal of coming back into corporate America and working. But it's very interesting how there will be people assigned to you to be a blessing, to help you, and to encourage you. And so during that 5-year journey that I went through, there were different people that were assigned in and out to do different assignments, whether it was to make appointments, whether it was to help me with basically walking down a hall or carrying a backpack for me as I'm en route to work, taking care of my son who was in daycare. All of those things met, but each and every day there was someone who was encouraging me to say, you can do it. And so from that diagnosis, and then being on the other side and really remembering my why, because my why is my son, and who is now 11 years old. And from this defining moment of having cancer and being a thriver, birthed a ministry, One Word Encourage LLC. And that's what we do. We share encouragement worldwide for people to thrive through a traumatic experience. But from that experience, you grow, you learn, and you continue to move forward. And then you can come back, just like me here, and share the testimonial that will be an encouragement to others. So again, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Congratulations, everyone, those thrivers. And so continue to embrace the new you, because you are much better and are doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, you are next.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I am a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient. Been battling cancer now for 2 years, pretty much to the day, actually. And I'm in Southern California. And My journey started when out of the blue, and this is right during the pandemic, actually. One day I wasn't out of the blue. I was in great shape. And until the pandemic hit, I was working out 4 to 5 times a week. I was in great shape. But then when the pandemic hit, I wasn't able to go to the gym. And I started to feel my age because I wasn't able to work out hard. And one day I wasn't able to walk. And so my wife took me to the doctor, he kind of patched me up and allowed me to at least walk back to the car somewhat. And then I started doing a deep dive into my health and really started trying to find out what was going on. And one test led to another test after an invasive test. And, when you're being put through all of these, I call it inhumane tests, you know there's something that's not right. So my oncologist called me into her office along with my wife, and she said to me, she looked at me and she says, "Your cancer is so bad that I can't cure you." I said, "Okay." And she goes, "Okay." I said, "Yeah, okay." And basically I was mentally prepared at that time for the worst. And she said that I had the stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer, which started in my prostate. So that started my journey, and I was so fortunate, so blessed that some incredible people were brought to me and put in my path. And I was so sick and so weak a year ago last spring that I was in my room for 3 months because I could barely walk, barely take a shower, and I couldn't even. I had a hard time going downstairs. So I was in my room for 3 months, and I connected. I was very fortunate. I was able to connect to the world through LinkedIn, and I started reaching out. And this was my first plan of action. I started reaching out to cancer patients and cancer survivors to find out what their stories were, to find out, how they did it, because I wanted to hear from people who walked the walk, who went down that path. I didn't want to hear somebody who was just trying to sell me something. I wanted to hear actual stories and actual things that people did to overcome this. And I began to realize very quickly that 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 I was determined beyond any reasonable doubt. I was determined to live. And so when my oncologist had given me my diagnosis, in my mind, I was going to live and make it through, because I had to be there for my family, who I love so dearly. And that was my driving force. And so along the way, what happened was I decided to chronicle my journey through a YouTube channel that I started, and it's called To Be Your Own Hero. And I wanted to share where I was in my journey and also inspire people to appreciate their life and appreciate their health, because I sure didn't. I sure hadn't. And now with this dealing with cancer, I had to. I didn't have a choice. I had to do everything I could to get better. And so I took a lot of steps. One of the steps I took was starting a YouTube channel and sharing my journey. Now I interview people, and I've been so fortunate that I've come across people who have really helped me. And for instance, I have a very good friend of mine who is a nutritionist, And I was in the hospital at that time, and he basically said, I can give you a diet that can help you. But at the time I was a vegan. And so he gave me a diet and he said, if you follow this diet to a T, he says, I think you'll be around in a year. But if you don't, I don't know if you'll be here. And so that really got me to thinking. And so I thought to myself, man, I don't really have a choice. So I decided to do it. Totally changed my diet. And I'm still here. And I've basically what I've done is I have gone through conventional treatment. I went through 6 rounds of chemo, but I also treated it with diet, and holistically, I've treated the whole being, my whole being, from my mental aspect. I also work with a hypnotherapist. I worked on my mind every day. I made sure that every day I woke up that I was thankful for opening my eyes every single day. And I've been so blessed and so thankful for each and every day. In fact, after the 3 months when I wasn't able to leave my room, when I finally opened my front door, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I never looked at the sky and the trees and the birds like I did that particular time, which I carried over to this very day. Every single day, I appreciate the small things, which, when you think about it, are actually the big things. And so I've been able to, with all the things, by treating the whole being, I've been able to get better, do much better. I'm still dealing with certain things, but my prostate is completely healed. When I started this journey, my PSA, which is the marker for prostate cancer, was close to 1,000. My oncologist said that that was the worst PSA number that she had ever seen. As we speak today, it is down to 0.8. And my lung cancer has gotten much better, along with my bone cancer. So I've been so thankful that I've had the opportunity to connect with people such as you people here, and Tim and Mary and Philip and everybody. So it's a team effort. It's an absolute team effort. And if it wasn't for these amazing people that have come into my life through the cancer community, I don't know where I'd be at. So I wouldn't wish cancer on anyone, but for me, it's completely changed my life and completely changed my outlook. It's opened my eyes to just how incredible this world is. So I could keep talking forever, but I won't. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mark, for joining us. Tim, you are.
Thank you, Philip, and thanks so much for having me. And it's wonderful to be with all of you here. And I see Nancy Barrows is here, and shout out to everyone who's tuning in. It's great to see you all here and be with you all. So my story is in 2008, when I was 26 years old, I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia, which is a blood cancer. And what happened was I discovered some purple bruises on my leg. And so I went to my primary care physician. I had never seen anything like this before. So I went and saw him, and he took some blood work, and he called me up and said, you need to go to the hospital right away. I don't remember the exact conversation, but it was definitely urgent. So I went to the hospital, and they admitted me, and I ended up being in the hospital for 4 days. And over that time period, they diagnosed me with chronic myeloid leukemia. And we do have a lot of cancer history in my family and my extended family. All of my grandparents have passed from cancer. People in my extended family currently have cancer. And so there's a lot of family history of cancer, but for some reason I just didn't think purple bruises on my legs could be cancer. It never popped into my mind. So I was just, my immediate reaction was just shock. Like I really knew nothing specifically about leukemia. All I knew about leukemia was I knew there was somebody from my elementary school that had died from leukemia. But I really didn't know anything about leukemia. I really knew nothing specifically about leukemia. All I knew about. So also, I was very grateful to have such a wonderful support system. My parents were so supportive, and my mom is actually she was a public health nurse her entire career, and actually worked at the hospital that I was admitted to for a good amount of time. And so both my mom, my dad, my sister Eileen, I remember they had wanted to put me on a clinical trial that nobody had ever been on before. And so my sister was asking a lot of questions. She said, has anybody ever been on this trial before? And I know she asked a lot of other questions as well. We didn't end up going that route. But what ended up being the treatment plan was taking an oral chemotherapy medication, a pill that I took for the original pill that I took is called Gleevec. It's spelled Gleevec. I took that for a number of years, and now I take one called Sprycel. Over time, sometimes your body becomes immune to a certain extent from the medication, and I'm super grateful that they do so much research and work in the medical field when it comes to cancer now, especially when it comes to CML, that they have a number of different options now when it comes to the oral chemotherapy medication. So basically I'll have to take that medication or a similar one for the rest of my life. Now, something happened almost a year ago. In December of 2021, I found out that I'm cancer-free. So it's October. So in just a few months, it will be 1 year. So let me just back up a little bit. I just want to talk a little bit in terms of how cancer has affected me in terms of, I've been very blessed in the sense that I've never struggled a lot when it comes to cancer in terms of, I've never been very sick. I've never had really a lot of side effects from medication or been very sick from the leukemia itself. So I've lived a very normal life when it's come to it all. But in terms of finding out that I'm cancer-free, it really, it's funny, I know I'm kind of all over the place. In November of 2021, I started up the Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer show. And then in December of 2021, I found out I was cancer-free, which it was kind of ironic, the time period that happened. But that's kind of a glimpse of my story. I guess I'll stop there.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate your time and your story. Next up, Disa.
Thank you.
How's it going, sir?
Pretty good. How about yourself? Well, good evening. My name is Adisa.
Doing pretty good. Thank you.
Colon cancer. Yeah, I'm a colon cancer survivor of 2 years and 3 months now. My story is that in 2020, as we all know, was the year of hell. But first part of 2020, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. How I found that out was my mother is a 2-time breast cancer survivor. The second time that she had it, they ran some more testing, and they suggested that her children get some testing done as well. And I had tested positive for, I guess, a genetic cancer carrying trait, the MLH1 trait. And one of the recommendations was that they do a colonoscopy. And at first, the doctor who was going to do the colonoscopy really didn't want to do it. He was like, "Well, you're not at that age." I was 32 at the time, and I said, "Well, I don't want to do this, but this paperwork says that we need to do this. So whether or not we both want to do this, we have to do this." And so it was January 2nd, 2020. Went in for the colonoscopy. I think everyone thought that everything was going to be fine, and I'd go back in 5 years. So he went into the colonoscopy when I woke up, and he walked in the room and said, "You have cancer," and literally took the life out of me. From there, just had to start, doctor's appointments like crazy. My wife and I had been married for a year and a half. And I had an 18-month-old daughter, so my first thoughts were with them. What do we do if something if it doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go? Ended up having surgery right before all hell broke loose with COVID. So it was February 26, 2020. They did a partial colectomy, so they ended up taking out a 1-foot section of my colon and sewing it back together. And then chemotherapy started in April of 2020. And chemotherapy went for about 3 months. And it was late July 2020 when I found out that everything had been clear and I was cancer free. So one of the things that I have to do every year for the rest of my life is I have a annual colonoscopy, and for the next several years, I also have to continue to do scans to make sure that everything is still clear and that no issues come up. One of the things that I did was right before surgery, I went online and I told my story, and worked with some friends, and we came up with a theme: Adisa Beats Cancer, and also partnered with the local T-shirt event to sell T-shirts. And one of the things that really inspired me and helped me get through it was that people bought the shirt. I think we sold over 250 shirts. And I will, okay, well, at first, the shirts, but then I was like, what are we going to do with it? Okay, well, every time I have chemotherapy, let's wear the shirts, and so that you're standing with me in solidarity. And that kind of helped motivate me and keep me going every time that, I had to sit through the long chemotherapy session. It felt like I was in the hospital literally all day. And it was also in the height of COVID. So hospitals were on lockdown. Only the people who had business in the hospital would be in there. And of course, you had all the other things going on in the country with protests and things of that nature. So it was definitely a challenging time. But I'm glad that I'm on the other side of it now. Health is good. Having a second child a little bit over a year ago. And so that was another one of my big fears, was that something I really didn't think about when I diagnosed was, could I have a second child? Didn't really start the process until we were well on the way of treatment and chemotherapy. But got in front of the right doctors, and it worked itself out. So I'm glad to be cancer free, and I'm also glad to be a part of this panel tonight. And so thank you all for having me.
Thank you for joining us, sir. We appreciate you. So the first question that I have is, let me get to my question. And this question goes for everybody. What was your first reaction when you told that you had cancer? Like that original, like click in your mind when the doctor, this is what you're gonna have to deal with for the next so and so amount of time. How did it like first originally set in with you? Oh, we can start with Mary.
My first reaction was that I was going to die. And that how could this happen to me at this point in my life? Everything was going well. Just married, just had a son, brand new, and this came out of left field. How could this happen to me? And literally, I screamed and walked out, left my husband right there, and went right on down to breast cancer center, and they were waiting for me. They knew what was coming. And so they took me right in the back to at least calm me down because I was pretty much hysterical. That was my initial reaction.
Mark,
My initial reaction, I was prepared for it. When she told me, gave me my diagnosis, which was stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer. And I basically, in my mind, I didn't tell her this, but in my mind, it was, I was basically, what was going through my mind was just forget you. That is not happening, and because I basically was developing a plan of my own, how I was going to do it. And so that's how I came about it. And I think, and this is one of the things that I like to share with people is be your own advocate. Your oncologist, your doctor, they're a human being, and they don't know how long you have to live. They don't know how long you're going to be around. They don't know you. How can they get to know you in 15 minutes or a few minutes of just looking at some numbers on a paper? There was in my mind, there was just no way that I wasn't going to live. I didn't know how I was going to do it at that time. And I was, basically very confused. And I just basically had to put my trust in God's hands. And that's what I did was, I said, hey man, I need help. I need help. Bring me help, bring me people, and bring me people that could help me in my journey, because there's just no way I wasn't going to be around. I was going to live, period. And that's it.
Thank you, Mark. Tim?
So my reaction was shock. And then I guess the next thing was, what do we do? And just, like how is this going to affect my life as well as, the people around me, my family. I didn't have a wife and kids yet, but just, my mom, my dad, my sister, my loved ones, and things like that. So really just shock, and then what's next?
Thank you, Tim. Lisa?
Thanks, Philip.
From the shock, and then I think one of the first things I remember saying to the doctor and also the technician who was in the room was, "We're going to kick this thing in the ass." And I think my mindset was, I'm going to give it everything that I have. I for the results to go the way I thought it should go. I also prepared for things to go a different way if it was going to go a different way. My mindset was, hey, as long as you're living, as long as you're moving, you got to give it a fighting chance, and you got to live life. I think my thought was, okay, well, I got to live for my wife and I got to live for my daughter. If anything, give a fighting chance so they can see you every day. But if it gets to that point where it has to go a different way, then it has to go a different way.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cook, you have the next question.
Yes, man. I just want to first of all say thank you all for being here, and God willing for you all to be here as well. One thing I want to start with, I want to ask some individual questions. This first one is to Mary. Mary, what was the heart damage that they said you had? Can you expand on that?
Yes, had to do with the average number of heartbeats. So there's a certain number of heartbeats in rhythm that was below the average numbers, and so I was not able to start radiation until numbers increased. So it took about a month and a half, and so I still have my echocardiograms, and because of that, I'm still on maintenance prescription drugs today. I'm doing well. I do always remember to take it easy, but that's what happened as a result of chemotherapy.
Right. Do they have any restrictions on you as far as exercise and things like that?
I don't have any restrictions with regard to exercise. So I go yearly. Well, I actually go semi-annually for my appointments, and they've been going very well.
Good. That's good to hear. Mark, this question goes out to you. First of all, you said a couple things that really rung in me. And when you said, a hypnotherapist, that's big. I go to a lady that every time I'm back in Columbus, I go to this Reiki guru who I really believe in. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm a big meditator, and I know that the mind can heal a lot of things. When you were going down that path, I clearly understand what you're saying and how your positive frame of mind really dictates where you go with this. I was playing college football with a scholarship when I first got sick, had my first kidney transplant. So I clearly understand where you're going with that. But what I wanted to talk to you about was, you were calm at that time. How did you I know you said you were calm because, of who you are and everything, but I love that you were like, I'm going to beat this. And just that attitude, where did you get that from? Because, to hear such hard news and for you to be so positive like that, can you expand on that?
Well, I knew that my oncologist is a human being, just like me, just like you, just like everyone here. What gives the right for another human being, despite or in spite of the fact that they may be a doctor or whatever, to tell another person how much time that they have to live? It's just not right. I see it so much that and to me it's so sad to see people. I mean, when I go to the facilities or hear about it, these oncologists tell people, hey, you have 6 months to live, you have a year to live, and what people do is they start building their life around that time period.
Right.
And so many people pass away right on their anniversary of that diagnosis, and that's just so wrong. And I'm so and that's one of the things that I really would like to change, and it is that diagnosis, because it doesn't have to be that way. My oncologist, she told me, she said, get your affairs in order. And so my wife was freaking out, and she's taken me all these places to sign all these forms and everything like that. I said, why are we doing all this? And she said, oh, didn't you hear the oncologist? I said, yes and no. I heard what she said, but I didn't take it to heart, you know.
Right.
And I said, but I'll do these things that you want, but I'm going to be around, and you know, and that's the way it's going to be, you know. But I'll play this thing and get all my affairs in order, because I had to do that anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I read a book called Radical Remissions by Kelly Turner, and through doing interviews on my YouTube channel, To Be Your Own Hero, it's so fascinating and it's so incredible to see these characteristics of people who've made it. And they're so similar. Every time I interview somebody, it's almost like a repeat of the last person. It's unbelievable. And these are people with faith, with a positive attitude, with a will to live. I mean, all of these things. And I was just talking to a friend of mine, a cancer survivor, the other day, and he said, you know what? And he's been a survivor for probably 20 years or so. And he said something that was really fascinating. He said, all the negative people that I knew through this journey, they're all gone. All of them. He said, there's not a single negative person that survived. And I thought, that's really interesting. I mean, all these characteristics, and Kelly Turner talks about it in her book, Radical Remissions, 9 characteristics of people who've gone through the cancer journey and have made it on the back end. And these characteristics keep coming up time and time and time again. So there has to be something to it. Absolutely has to be.
Yes,
and mindset, you know, diet is important. Mindset, what you feed your mind on a daily basis. Every single day, I open my eyes and I'm so thankful every day to open my eyes and to have that opportunity for another day, because that means that I'm not 6 feet under, that I have another day to do battle. And that's what I do every single day. And, you know, I'll probably have to deal with certain issues with cancer the rest of my life, but that's okay. I mean, from last year to this year, last year, I could barely walk. I wasn't driving. This year, I walk up and down hills outside my house, and I'm driving, and life is great. I'm as happy could be. So I'm very, very thankful, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we love to hear your story. Thank you so much, Tim. Now, this blows me away, because I could hear Mark's story, and Mark, 3 months in the bed, he couldn't move, and all these things. And then, you know, this is my second time talking to Tim, and Tim, you know, Tim conveyed to Faro, I was never sick. I never felt bad. You know, I just went through this journey, and I got better, and it still blows my mind. And Tim, you know, I just wanted to say that about you, that, you know, you don't take it for granted, and I love that. But, you know, with your family members having some of these same particular illnesses, do you tend to help them, or do they kind of ask you a lot of information about what's going on?
Not in recent times. Not recently. I mean, they have been supportive in terms of, you know, the work I've been doing in terms of like Leukemia and Lymphoma Society fundraisers and things like that. So that has definitely, you know, brought connections in terms of that and some conversations. Yeah, that's what I would say in terms of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because I would be leaning on you like nobody's business, you know? because I like Mark. I'm the type of person where I want to listen to somebody who's been through it. I don't want to just listen to it. And no disrespect to the doctors and everything, they do a wonderful job. But again, I want to talk to somebody who's been through it and can I can say certain things and they can, yeah, this is what helped me with this, whatever and everything.
Yeah.
Addis, man, I met you through Edward a couple of times when I lived in Columbus, Ohio, but I live in Tampa now, man. How you doing today?
Doing good. Doing good.
Good. So let me ask you something, man. Colon cancer is what they consider the one. So when they took out part of your colon, how did you feel after that, and how was your recovery?
So there was two options that I could have done. The one that I ended up doing was the partial colon removal. I really didn't feel anything different right away because I was on a straight liquid diet for the first few days until I had to go number 2. I was trying to think of the politically correct way to say it without, and your imagination can take you wherever it needs to take you. And then I can start eating solid foods. Since I've gone through chemotherapy and done everything else, I've also changed my diet a little bit. I don't eat as much red meat as I used to. But I will know if I do overdo it with eating food or if I eat something that I know I shouldn't, I'm going to feel something differently. And that's just with the partial. Now, if they had removed the entire colon, then I think the way that works, as soon as you eat, you need to know where the nearest restroom is. So I definitely would have felt a lot of changes. Something else I forgot to mention was that both my grandfather and my great uncle had colon cancer.
Oh, okay.
So there's a history of it in the family. So they, but I think they had their entire colon removed. Because when they had it, they're both deceased now. They, so they were 40s. So this was like the 1970s. Medicine was a lot different 50 years ago than it is today. But to be able to, yes, you do feel something different. Your lifestyle is completely different as well. So, and then, every year having to do colonoscopy, going through that process, that is, it's never fun the day before or the day of, but once you're done, you're done.
I agree. I know it takes on a new president after you went through what you went through. That's really remarkable. Mark, a question for you, Mark, is how did your diet change? You said you was a vegan, and we always think, if you're a vegan, you're eating the best overall. So what did your doctor tell you and implement in your nutrition plan?
No, it wasn't my doctor. It was
I'm sorry, your friend. Apologize.
Yeah, my friend who's a nutritionist. So I was a vegan, and I thought I had a great diet, but apparently I didn't because I got cancer real bad. So what he told me at that particular time, I was down to 123 pounds. As we speak today, I'm 160. So what he said was, you have to have animal protein in your diet. And I had been a vegan for 10 years. So I was like, oh boy. And so he said, we need to add grass-fed beef, organic chicken, organic turkey, wild salmon. And so those are the 4 things I've stuck with. And, I was always eating a lot of vegetables and things like that. But he also had me, I basically have evolved my diet over the past year and a half. And I start every morning with lemon water. and then I follow that up with celery juice about 15-20 minutes after that. And about 20 minutes after that, I followed up with a smoothie. And in my smoothie, I have ginger and parsley and cilantro and celery and blueberries and honey and a couple other things off the top of my head. I'm just rattling. And then I basically have one, maybe two meals the rest of the day. And so I have my protein along with salad and quinoa. And, I don't vary my diet that much except for the proteins, but I'm still here. So he was right. He was absolutely right. He said, follow this. And, he said, I'll think you'll be here. And I'm here. And I follow the diet religiously. One of the things that I've come to find is I don't have cheat days, except for if I'm traveling, then I don't have a choice. Then I have to kind of pick and choose what I eat. But this is what I eat pretty much every day, and so that's what I've stuck with, and it's worked. So yeah, anybody interested, they could hit me up, and I have videos on my diets and my supplements and things like that.
I always say, if you don't have kidney problems, grass-fed beef and wild salmon and veggies is the best way to eat with no refined carbohydrates. But if you have kidney problems, your body can't handle the meat. That's why you got to be careful with that. But I do agree with that. But Mary, this question goes out to you again. How did you, you just got a new husband, a new baby and everything, and you said the support you got. Let's talk about some of the support you got, because that's big. You going through all these things with your health, and all of a sudden you have a family to take care of too. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. The support was actually divine. I originally picked 5 people that were the strongest because there was no history on either side of my family, and this came out of left field. This was nothing that was expected. This was, I thought that the pain that I was experiencing with being in a management position was just stress.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not the case. And so I picked 5 strong people. I didn't want to pick a party because I was already all over the place. I needed people that were strong that could say, yes, you can do this, Mary. And so I picked 5 people. However, I entered into a new position in corporate. So they did not know me. And our staff very lean. And so I was the person that came in and put in processes and procedures very quickly because I had the experience then of about 15 years to do it. So I put aside what I was going through, but eventually when I received the diagnosis, I couldn't even speak about it. It just overwhelmed me so much that there was another person that started on the same day I did that was a management level position. Person, representative. So that was my voice. And so I spoke to the actual chief officer, and then eventually I went in and said what was going on. And so he cried. And I would say because he was crying. However, he had experienced loss, some family members that had passed away as a result of breast cancer. So he understood. So he said from that moment, how can we support you? They didn't know me. I hadn't even been there 90 days.
Wow.
I wasn't eligible for short-term disability benefits. Now keep in mind, I'm saying divine, okay? And so whatever it is that you need, we're here to support you. And I'm like, okay. So the next week, I knew that I had to have a mastectomy, and he said, how can we support you? I said, well, would you mind coming? Would you come to the hospital? And he was like, yes. And so one of the team members. And so they came, we're like, party, you know, and so they cheered me up. But here's where the divine comes in, is that not only that group of people who I did not know, there were other groups of team members coming in and out over 5 years, supporting me, encouraging me, not knowing that they were grateful of faith. That's what I needed at the time. And even though I am, it's a different scenario when it comes out of left field and it's you. And so different people came in and out on different assignments. It didn't matter if they were the people that had to see my appointments. It didn't matter if it was someone who said, you know, we're going to work your inbox for a few weeks. Just let me know how I can help you. But what was interesting was that my husband had taken out a critical illness years ago. And came home real proud and said, Mary, you know, babe, I took out this critical illness policy. Okay, that's great. I forgot all about it. But we met at a law firm. So I called my old right hand, whose name is Mary. And I said, Mary, and she said, oh my gosh, how are you doing? You know, your husband, he's kind of all over the place. We're trying to work with him. I said, do you remember a critical illness insurance policy that we had? Can you look that up for me? And she says, you know what? Yes, you have it. So we filled out the paperwork. I had undergone 2 rounds of treatment, chemo, and 2 days after Christmas, there was a check in the mail.
Oh.
My husband didn't know anything about policies or anything. I'm the HR expert, but he did that. But over a 5-year period, different people to transport me to treatment. People getting me a house saying, you can't stay in the house. We can't have you lay down. We've got to keep moving. But what was more new from God as a blessing was that I was the first non-exempt employee that worked from home during treatment. All I had to do was put myself up and type. Yeah. And then return to work after having an airborne virus, because I went into work on off chemo weeks. Come back to the office in 2 months. Who gets a promotion? Oh, because of your work, you're promoted to the recruiting team. So it's just types of things that I don't care what anybody says. I got my own testimony. I will bring the people to help you.
That's awesome, man.
To help you. And I'm thankful to them to this day. We are still in touch.
That's beautiful, man. Those are lifelong friends right there. It's amazing. So that's beautiful to hear. I can ask questions all night long. I got several for everybody, but I'm gonna let Phil take over. Go ahead, Phil, do your thing.
All right, so this last question is for everybody. 3 things would you tell a person just yesterday learned of their cancer diagnosis? Start with, Mary, Mark, Tim, and then
I would say that the diagnosis, that cancer is a word. It doesn't take you captive. I would definitely also say that there's always help. There's going to be people that are going to come alongside you and help you receive the help, and know that you are going to be better. So those are the 3 things.
thank you. Mark?
I think one of the things that is most important particularly when you get the diagnosis, is you have to answer the door. You have to immediately address and work towards getting better and living. You can't push it under the rug. You can't ignore it. It's very serious, because you are in the fight for your life. And if you treat it that way, if you treat it, put everything that you have into it, then, with the right access and with the right set of circumstances, you can beat this. One of the things that I think is most important, and what I like to see is, as a society, we've all been programmed to believe that when a person is diagnosed with cancer, it's a death sentence. And I want to change that, and I want to get people in my corner and people all over. I want to change that perception because it needs changing. It's an old something that is old, and in the past, I'm sure that was the case, but it's not the case now, because there's so much out there, but the problem is it's scattered all over the place, and so it's so important to reach out to people that have gone through it, that have made it, because they can hold the key to helping you as a newly diagnosed cancer patient. And so I like to say that what we like to do is replace the fear of getting cancer with education about what you're actually dealing with. Because what happens is you get diagnosed with cancer, and your oncologist is immediately pushing you into the system to try to get treatment, because it's a money-making thing for them. Sure, they're trying to help you in their way, but people need to realize that cancer is big business, and it's being, it's and the drug companies are behind it. So we're in a day and age now that, what was true maybe in the past doesn't have to be true today. You can beat this if you believe it and you have the right access. And so that's my interpretation of that. So thank you.
Great advice, Mark. Appreciate you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. So one, I totally agree with Mary about accepting help from others. That's so important. And, depending, what your mindset is, sometimes you might not want to do that, especially at first when you're diagnosed. It could be so overwhelming, and depending where where your mind is, but try to accept help from others, because it will help you. Another thing I would say is, try to connect with other and have conversations with other cancer survivors and supporters. Like us here, I'm sure we'd all be happy to have conversations with you, or over at the Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer show, which is Tuesdays at 3:00 Eastern time, or Mark has his YouTube channel, or, right here, or other communities, actually talking to people who have been through similar situations. Everybody obviously has their own journey that they go through. Nobody's is exactly the same. But it's definitely helpful to talk to people who have been through something somewhat similar. And then just try to do, whatever makes you happy, whatever you can do that makes you happy, brings you joy every day. Even if it's something little. So those would be my 3 things. Thank you.
You're up.
Okay. My 3 things is: 1, don't give up. I know it was said earlier that people who transition from this, or don't, survive, or don't have the results the way they want, is that they give up on life. There are people who fight, but as well. But unfortunately, the cancer has taken them on a different journey. John Lewis, Chadwick Boseman, Stuart Scott, to name a few. So the first thing I would say is fight. The second thing is don't be afraid to use your resources. Although I was going through it in the thick of the pandemic, my village was there for me and my family. There was a group of friends who organized, and they made sure that once a week during the thick of me going through chemotherapy, that dinner was sent to the house, so that my wife didn't have to make dinner. And that meant a lot. There was times where people would take me to chemotherapy appointment, which, those little things kind of relieved some of that stress that my family had to deal with. Obviously we were going through a pandemic, so we took every precaution necessary to ensure that we weren't spreading COVID around. And, but the biggest thing to, fight, use your resources, use your network. And the third thing is just have the mindset that everything is going to work out for the best. Whatever it is, you're going to be able to handle it. You're going to be able to deal with it. And my mindset, I'm a big fan of sports, particularly basketball. I love the NBA. I went into it every time I had to deal with doctors or deal with surgery or chemotherapy, it was game 7. And so I felt if I could give it a go, I'm going to go out here and give it my best shot. And every time I felt that I could give it a go, so I went out there and I gave it my best shot. And that's it.
Thank you, D. Appreciate you joining us. Mr. Cook, you got anything?
I just want to say thank you to the panel. I appreciate you guys coming on. And I also appreciate you guys going through these journeys. And one thing I can say, guys, are positive and great spirits, and keep up the faith and keep up the hard work and stay gratified.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And so thank you all for joining us today. Great stories and your time, dynamic, powerful stories, and what you can do when you put your mind to something. And so we'll be back here on the Second Chance next Sunday. The time will be a little early. It'll be 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time, UK on with us next. So looking forward to that. Again, thank you all. If you watch or you're watching later, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop a like in the comment section. We appreciate you all. You guys have a blessed night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.